Hey there, Kelly Howard here, and welcome to the Fit is Freedom podcast. Each week, I bring you what's working for myself, for my clients, plus interviews with some cutting edge health and fitness professionals. I'm not sure why that word always gets me, Brad. I'm going to start over again. Hey there, Kelly Howard here, and welcome to the Fit is Freedom podcast. Each week, I bring you what's working for myself, for my clients, plus interviews with cutting edge professionals in the health and fitness industry. We're here to help you live your best, healthiest, and most vibrant life. And so thank you so much for joining me. So I have to tell you, today is a little bit of a podcast slash rant slash soapbox. So forgive me. But other than a movement plan, which I believe is the first place we should always start, I think that the next focus we have should be food. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a Blue Zone special that will talk a lot about food, everything around food, like food is health, food is fuel, food is medicine, and food is a good food lifestyle. But before we jump into the whole food as health conversation, I'd like to talk to you about what I think is probably the single biggest food issue at all, which is sugar. Like straight up, I am not anti-sugar. I don't think that we should never enjoy desserts, bread, a little overindulging, but we do need to face it that sugar is a thing that is affecting a lot of people's health. And we've been fed a bill of goods when it comes to all the added sugar that goes into our food. It's astronomical, quite frankly. The food industry is huge, and their job is to get us to eat what they sell. Okay. They're not evil, but they have learned that one way to get us to eat what they sell is to make it really, really tasty. So when I ask clients about their sugar intake, almost always what happens is they get just a little quiet and say something like, it could be better. Maybe I'm having too much sugar. And so then we dive a little deeper. And what usually comes out is just shame around the whole sugar habit. And I am not here to shame anyone ever, especially since sugar has been shown to be as addictive as cocaine. So basically what happens with sugar is it triggers the dopamine in the brain. And that's a neurotransmitter that is a key part of the reward circuit. It's associated with addictive behavior. So when a certain behavior causes an excess release in dopamine, you'll feel this pleasurable high and then you're inclined to experience that, right? So we repeat the behavior. But as we repeat the behavior again and again, or more and more, our brain adjusts and it starts to release less dopamine. So the only way to feel the same high as before is to repeat the behavior in increasingly larger amounts and frequency. So this is known as substance misuse. That's what sugar does to us. Sugar activates the opiate receptors in our brain and it affects the reward center, which leads to compulsive behavior, despite negative consequences that we experience, like weight gain and headaches and hormone imbalances and sleep issues and like all the things, right? So there was some research done on rats at Connecticut College. And it was shown that Oreo cookies activate more neurons in the pleasure center of rats' brains, than cocaine does. And just like humans, they said the rats would eat the filling first. Funny, but tragic, right? They also found that the rats, once they became dependent, they went through the same levels of addiction that happened in the cocaine, in the sugar, which was the craving, the binging, and the withdrawal. So sorry, rats. But if you think about it, that's what happens to us. That's our brain on sugar. And in general, the average American consumes somewhere around 17 teaspoons of sugar per day. That's 3 times more than the American Heart Association recommends as a safe level. So we're already adding on 3 times, and we don't even know where it's coming from in a lot of times because there are so many sugary food options, and a lot of them appear to be healthy. And I'm naming names here, guys. 1 cup of Dannon low-fat vanilla yogurt, okay? Low fat, it's yogurt. We're doing all the things right? Except it's like 8.5 teaspoons of sugar, and that's in a cup. And then vitamin water, once again, doing all the right things, 4.5 teaspoons of sugar in vitamin water. And then sauces like ketchup, mustards, dressings, salad dressings, even balsamic vinegar. And the other day I noticed my chewable vitamins, they have sugar added. So the problem is that it's just like it's everywhere. And we don't really know that we're taking it in. And when we take it in, we're having the same results as if we were overindulging. And then of course there's the long-term health benefits, health terms effects like obesity, diabetes. I mean, it all comes from sugar overindulgence, and there's a whole lot more, but we'll just start there, okay? I don't want to like terrify people. Well, maybe I will. Sorry. So extra sugar intake, higher blood pressure, inflammation. So if your joints are bothering you, I have seen this happen again and again and again when someone either quits eating sugar or goes crazy and fasts for a few days. But I'm not saying go fast, okay? That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But when I see people quit or reduce their sugar, I see their pain in their joints go down tremendously. I see weight gain go away. Fatty liver disease. Like there's so many things that are even heart, right? Heart health and cancer, they're associated sugar. So I hope you weren't really looking forward to dessert tonight. Sorry about this. But let's take it one step further, because now it really comes home to me. Refined carbohydrates cause spikes in blood sugar, which is exactly the same actions that we're experiencing with sugar. So it leads to that crash, which triggers hunger and leads to food cravings. And at the top of it all these things that we're craving they've got no essential nutrients. I mean, they're basically empty calories. And so you've got the refined carbs and the sugar. They're the ones that a lot of times are comfort food, the ones that we crave, the ones that I crave. Tell you, my favorite food in the world is pasta. I have to limit it because I notice that my body doesn't deal well with it like it used to. So pasta, fries, pizza, white bread, and then all the sugary treats. So, all right. Am I off my soapbox? Maybe, maybe not. Let me just go back through really quick. Like, think about this from sugar. And I'm not telling you to never eat sugar again, okay? I'm going to suggest that we do an experiment. So this is not about never enjoying desserts again, but I just want you to think about what happens, and that even when you're not purposely choosing sugary desserts, if you aren't paying attention to labels and the kind of foods you're eating, you're still getting the same results as having the sugary desserts. So it's the weight gain and the brain fog and the sleep and even depression, okay? Lack of energy, loss of willpower like immediately, and then all the other illnesses that, I've already gone over, including cellular aging. It's been shown that sugar will actually accelerate telomere shortening, which increases cellular aging. And teeth, of course, we all know this: kidneys, gout, dementia, Alzheimer's, all the things. So try this. Just try this, okay? Try a sugar freedom experiment. And the way the experiment works is, first, it's an experiment. And the reason it's an experiment is because if you tell your body and your brain, quite frankly, that you're going to quit sugar for a month, your brain's going to be like, to hell with you. I had one of my clients that came and we were doing a sugar freedom month. And so there's a whole bunch of people on the call. I don't remember. I'll make something up. It was like 20, 30 people on the call. So we're all on the call and we're talking about, how we're going to do this and what we need to do. And all of a sudden, this one person, her eyes, like, she looks at me and her eyes get big and she's like, wait a second, 30 days, a month. I thought this was 2 weeks. I'm not doing this for a month. What happened was, and this was the cool thing, the cascading effect of good that ended up happening in that particular person's life was literally life-changing, life-changing. Like she changed so many habits that she'd been wanting and wishing to change for years with that one little experiment. And she was willing to try the 30 days. After she blew up, she settled down and she said, okay, I'll try the 30 days, but I am not committing. I'm like, that's okay. It's an experiment. So keep that in your mind. This is an experiment. So awareness is one of the most important pieces. You want to start being aware of what's going on. You want to be aware of when you eat it, how does it impact your energy? When you eat it, how does it impact your sleep? Or when you don't eat it, how does it impact your energy and your sleep? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning with or without? Like just start getting aware. And we'll talk about triggers in a minute, but you just really have to start like thinking about things that are going to change and be different if you're following the experiment. So first thing, start reading labels. And then you want to create a runway prior to starting. The reason you have a runway is if you just said, you listen to this and you go, hey, tomorrow I'm going to do a sugar-free experiment for 30 days. Well, there's a few things that might not be set up properly for you. One of them is you may have junk in the house that you need to get rid of. There may be ice cream containers in the freezer, and that's your kryptonite that you need to get rid of. Not eat, ditch. You want to start purchasing good food options. All right. And we talk a lot about good food options in Sugar Freedom, but just so you know, like top of mind, of course, complex carbohydrates, the beans, legumes, and, all the good ones. You want to have things like, I don't know, fruit. There's nothing wrong with fruit. Fruit in minimums, not maximums, fruit in minimums. Lots of vegetables, good proteins, all the things that we know we need to be eating. Those are the things that you should be bringing in. Another thing is that you also want to look at, if you have a partner who lives with you, what do they have in the house and how are you going to deal with it? So this particular person that I was talking about earlier, one of the things was that her partner has the most atrocious eating habits you've ever heard of in your life. And he would just bring all the junk food in, like all the junk food, from the chips to the Cheetos to the ice cream to the candy to the, I don't know what else, like all the stuff. So he didn't want to even attempt to do an experiment. It was in his world. He was not interested. So what she did was we started looking at, like, how do you handle this? So she took one cabinet in her kitchen, took everything out of it, put all of his junk, all the junk in the cabinet. And then as far as she was concerned, that cabinet didn't exist, right? She closed the cabinet. She never looked in there again. And there was one rule in the house, and that was if he put any junk in the real cabinet, like the real pantry, then she threw it away. And didn't take long. A couple of bags of Cheetos in the trash, and that was the end of that. So you have to think about how you're going to handle, if you're not living alone, the other people in your life dealing with their stuff. And when I'm talking about their stuff right now, I'm talking about their physical life, if they eat junk food or whatever it is. So then you also need to have some alternatives to what you typically snack on, what you typically eat if you're triggered, what you typically like your go-to stuff. Soothers could be something as simple as maybe a tea ritual. Like that's one of mine is that I buy nice tea. I use a nice cup. It becomes kind of it's a break, right? It's literally a break in the usual. So it stops me, it gets me recentered. And then I can just be like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this tea. Maybe one really good piece of really good dark chocolate if you're just like totally in on it. Breathing exercises, going for a walk. I mean, there are a lot of soothers out there, and this is just like a couple of them, but start thinking about things that you would enjoy that could break up that that addictive response that we have. And remember, it's an experiment. In an experiment, you need support. So find like some friends who will be in on this with you. Come join us in Sugar Freedom. Whatever it is, find a way to have some support and to have accountability. Accountability is a big one. I've seen in Sugar Freedom, we do accountability via text. I have never seen so many texts ever on anything I do except during Sugar Freedom. Texts fly. Somebody will be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm walking down the aisle of I'm walking down the aisle with the candy bars or whatever it is," and so somebody will be like, "Get out of there! Stop that! Go do something else!" And it's just like sometimes when you ask for just a little bit of clarification, not even clarification that I don't know what to do, but clarification like, "Hey, I need somebody to have my back." That's where accountability comes in. And that's where community and camaraderie come in. I think those are the biggest pieces that if you do Sugar Freedom with us, that you get, because like someone has your back. And if you're all alone, sometimes it's just a matter of like white knuckling it, right? And then the next one is you need to know your triggers. Okay. You need to understand and start conquering triggers. So triggers are the things that make you want to indulge. Okay. A lot of times triggers they're like the time of day. They can be location based. They can be event based. They can be person based. There's a lot of different things. Like literally, when I was making the notes for this podcast, I get a call. Phil's up in Canada visiting his parents, and so it's him and his mom, and his dad is in the hospital having a little procedure. So they're on the phone. They're on speakerphone with me, and the whole time they're like crunch, 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 crunch. And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like carrots, but I'm not going to say anything. And eventually his mother says, "I'm so stressed that I'm just eating all the cookies." And I just laugh because that's what happens, right? Stress is one of those triggers that just makes us step out and do things. So when you understand your triggers, a couple of things happen. One of them is awareness, right? So you understand what your triggers are, and we have a lot of different triggers, okay? But once you know your triggers, then you know to take action before it happens. And we've got a lot of tools that you can use. Some of them are like just awareness. I've said that word 1,000 times in this podcast, but it's true. Like awareness is one of them. Breathing, like just stopping and saying, "Okay, before I dive into the bag of cookies, I'm going to do 7 deep breaths, inhales and exhales." A lot of times you're just settling your nervous system when you do that. And that is enough to stop it. Okay. Like a lot of times it's just like a simple breathing exercise. And I don't know if you can hear it right now, but my dog's right next to me and she's having a breathing exercise. She's snoring away. But yeah, like a simple breathing exercise. Using your soothers. Trying something like EFT. So EFT is called emotional freedom technique. And it's another way of calming your nervous system. Like there's so many tools you can try. But once again, the biggest piece is to recognize when you're being triggered and have a way around it. I had a client one time who she said that she just couldn't help it. Every afternoon, she would have something out, like some sort of dessert thing out of the vending machine. So the vending machine would have donuts and I don't know, all those things in there. And she would go past it because at lunch, she'd drink water because she knew she was supposed to drink water. So then it's after lunch, she's having a little bit lunch slump. And so now she's got to go to the restroom. She's got to go pee. She goes to the restroom. She goes right past the vending machine. And to get to the restroom, now everything's triggered. And she comes back with one of these things out of the vending machine. So what we figured out was, why not find a way to get to the restroom that doesn't include going past the vending machine? Sounds simple, right? But we don't think like that. We don't. We're creatures of habit. So what we did was we laid out literally a way that she could get to the restroom, completely avoid the vending machine, going to and fro. Ended up taking her like 5 minutes to walk there and back instead of 2 minutes like before. So now she's getting a little bit of a break from her sitting at her desk, and she's no longer being triggered by the visual of seeing that vending machine with all the stuff in it. So a lot of this is just thinking, okay, I can't help it, thinking outside of the vending machine, right? Like thinking outside of the box. How are you going to do this? So remember, this is an experiment. And when you're ready, just remind your mind that it's an experiment. So then it's no longer scary. It is a bit harder to do by yourself, but you can do it. Okay. If you have a partner, you're going to need to deal with their junk, however you're going to do that, a junk cabinet or whatever it is. And then what happens after this? Okay, let's just talk about this for just a second. So let's say you do 30 days without sugar. Then what happens next? So what happens next is what I like to call maintenance. And maintenance is, some people continue going sugar-free. Most do not. Okay. Like 99% of the people who do sugar freedom, they don't say, okay, I'm done, never going to do sugar again. Instead, they'll go into maintenance phase. And maintenance phase is when you continue to use these things that we're talking about, but you're not as restrictive. So over the course of maybe the next 6 months, what I'll see is typically people have dropped about 50% of their sugar intake. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but somewhere around 50%. And then let's say that they do another sugar experiment, sugar freedom with me, or sugar experiment on their own, whatever it is, they do another one. And now their sugar intake is down by another 50%. So now they're at somewhere around 25% of where they were initially. And a lot of times people will, they'll kind of bring some of it down, or else if they notice that they're starting to increase their sugar intake, they just bring it back. And it's all because we've broken the addiction cycle and we've given ourselves awareness. So it's a big, big change. Okay. It's a big change and it's a big shift in our health. So some of the things that clients have told me have happened. One of them, I have a client who, in about 7 months, she lost around 30 to 40 pounds. I don't remember exactly what it was. She had decided that she needed to do something like this. She did it. She dropped that weight, but it wasn't just about the weight, because at that point, she started doing some really extensive exercise, like really extensive exercise. And now she is like a rock star goddess out there. And it's all because she just made a line in the sand, right? I have another client who, in the 30 days, she lost 5 inches overall, which is quite a bit, right? But this is not really about, it's a little bit about weight and inches, but really, like, it's about health. So everyone tells me they have better sleep, less brain fog, better gut health. That's a big one. And I had one client who said her doctor asked her what she was doing because her blood work was so extraordinarily improved. And it's just like the thing, it adds up. It adds up, and it's really actually, in a lot of ways, kind of a precursor to our next podcast episode about the blue zones. So, all right. I have one final tip for you when we come back from the break. So hang on and come back. So here's what I'd like you to do. I want to give you 4 really easy steps to follow. Do this on your own, join us in Sugar Freedom, whatever works for you. But these are the steps that you can start with. 1, start reading labels. Labels, become crazy about labels. Even better if you can find yourself consuming very few things with labels. But pay attention to labels. Create a runway, okay? You need that runway so that it feels like you're setting yourself up to win. You're not just throwing yourself into the lobster pot. Remember to treat it like an experiment. If you were to treat this like an experiment, what would you do, right? When it's an experiment, your brain gets curious, and a curious brain is a really, really good brain. That's the kind of brain you want to have on your side. Because when we get curious, our brain comes up with its solutions. It becomes a solution brain. And then also, do you have someone who you could find that would be supportive of you for this? So remember, sugar freedom means something different for everyone. But when you do learn to manage it, you'll find that not only will you lose that extra belly weight, you're going to sleep better, you're going to have more energy, and you're just going to feel better in life. So this is an easier way than just white knuckling through like a less sugar option. I would love for you to join me if you can, but either way, Let's make this a way of life and less of a reaction to everything that comes our way in life. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week.